Hi guys, and welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to be talking to you all about consistency. Probably the word that I have typed out the most since doing online coaching, and it is of the utmost importance for you to get the most out of your diet. So consistency in terms of diet comes from being consistent on your macro targets. So when I coach people, I'll give them an allotted amount of calories, and I'll divide these calories into allotted amounts of protein, carbohydrates and fat. Consistency within these numbers makes it extremely easy for a coach to make changes to your diet plan and to get you results. So let's say, for example, I've got a whiteboard here which we're going to use. So we've got a 60 kilo individual. Okay, we're going to have their total calories at 1500. Okay, and we're going to split their calories into 130 grams of protein, 155 grams of carbs, and 40 grams of fat. Now, when I coach my clients, I ask for them to give me a weekly check-in sheet. And on that check-in sheet, one of the most important factors is, have you followed the nutrition plan? I'll also ask them to write in the macros that they have got for each day of the week. This allows me as a coach to see how consistent they are on the numbers that I have given them, and if their results are starting to stall or they're not gaining weight at an amount that I expect them to, I can then make subsequent changes. Now, the problem with consistency or lack of it is that if this individual here was eating, let's say, 100 grams of protein, 120 grams of carbs and 60 grams of fat on Monday, and then on Tuesday they were eating 95 grams of protein, 125 grams of carbs and 40 grams of fat on Tuesday. Wednesday they were eating 120 grams of protein, 100 grams of carbs and 60 grams of fat, and so forth for the rest of the week. What happens then when they check in, if their results have not changed, i.e. they have not lost weight and they're expecting to lose weight, I have nothing to work with. So the consistency upon their macros, so enabling them to be able to hit the amount of protein, carbohydrates and fat I've written down, and if those numbers are taken care of, it hits this number for me. If that is consistently hit over 7 days and then they are not losing weight, what I can then do as a coach is make a very small adjustment to those macros in order to then fast track results again. So taking this same individual, okay, one of the first swaps I can do is take away 10 grams of carbs and 5 grams of fat. What then happens is it puts them in a calorie deficit from what they were used to of 85 calories, okay? So we drop their calories down by 85. We take that away from carbs and fat because we want protein to be set in stone, and that number doesn't need to change. And what therefore happens is they should, over the next 7 days, start to lose weight, okay? But I can only make changes like this if in the first week this is taken care of. If these numbers are all over the place and then I make an 85 calorie decrease in the next week and they're still then all over the place, I have no consistency to work with. So what happens is your body gets used to what you're feeding it. Now, if you're consistent on those targets of protein, carbohydrates and fats day in, day out for weeks on end, what will happen is your body will then be getting used to the amount of calories that you're eating from the types of food that you're eating, okay? When that is consistent over a long period of time, the slightest change in that, deduction in calories from carbs and fats, will have an effect on the body. You will start losing weight because what you're doing is taking the body from a level of where it started to get used to the amount of calories that you're eating, and the maintenance number of those calories, so your weight is no longer gaining or losing, you're staying the same, and you then deduct a small amount from it, your weight will then start to drop because you've put your body in a calorie deficit. Okay, so if you're then taking away 85 calories across 7 days, the deficit becomes quite large and you'll start to lose weight again. But as I said, this can only happen if you're consistent on those numbers. If you are inconsistent, you're eating random amounts of protein, carbohydrates and fat, you're constantly undereating on protein, overeating on carbs and overeating on fat, or you're never hitting your macros or even hitting the same numbers each day, even if you're missing those targets, it makes it extremely difficult to make any changes. With my clients that I coach, the first 4 weeks is more or less a learning stage. I'll teach them how to track the food that they're eating, how to, or what types of food to eat in order for them to hit their macros. And then from then onwards, it's on the client. If the client is consistent, I guarantee them results. The only time I don't get results with clients is when they are inconsistent. People who have a macro target, constantly overeat on their carbs by 30 grams a day, that adds up across the week. They won't lose weight. That again doesn't allow me to make any changes. So even slight increases, say they hit their protein target. So if we go back to our individual, our 60 kilo individual who's eating 1500 calories a day, say they're consistently eating 130 grams of protein, they're consistently eating 40 grams of fat, but they're consistently also eating 165 grams of carbs and not losing weight, there's no point in me making a deduction because they're already overeating on their calories. The first thing they need to do is take away that additional 10 grams of carbs a day and eat to the targets I've given them. They will then lose weight. So if their weight is maintained on a calorie total that is over the target I've given them, their first job is to actually abide by and adhere to the calorie targets I've given them. The lack of adherence and the lack of consistency will lead to lack of results. So the only thing that you really need to understand and to kind of drill into yourself is to make a consistent effort to actually abide and adhere to the calorie targets. Clients who are consistent will get results. Clients who are inconsistent, they will not get results. And it's just down to the fact that their body is not getting used to the amount of calories that they're eating. Obviously, this can become a bit of a chore, as you obviously have to weigh and measure all of the food that you want to eat. However, getting in shape does come at a cost, it does come at a sacrifice. The more in tune you are with the food that you're putting into your body, the easier the changes are for a coach to make, and therefore the easier it is for you to lose weight in the long haul. So what you have to do is abide by the targets, make sure you're consistent on those numbers, and allow your body to respond to those. Inconsistency will lead to inconsistent results. So the moral of the story here is, when the calorie targets get given at the start, the macro targets get given at the start, do your absolute best to change your dietary habits in order to hit those macros. If over the coming weeks, let's say 4 weeks, you haven't been consistent on those targets, you're always missing a certain number of carbs or a certain number of protein, which is normally the case, the coach has no option other than to deduct calories from your starting macros in order to then try and help you to start hitting those numbers consistently. But that means you're eating at a lower amount of calories than you want to be on from the start, and it will make the life further down the diet much, much harder. So takeaway point, as I said before, make sure you hit those numbers, make sure you don't miss on them, and make sure you're consistent with them and patient on them for long enough to see results.